Welcome to Breaking Boundaries podcast. I'm Matt Colomer here with my co-host Raphael Avjolu. On this podcast, we interview people that are pushing themselves and testing their limits within art, business, and entrepreneurship.
What drives you, what pushes you to your breaking point, and what got you to where you are right now? This is Breaking Boundaries podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Breaking Boundaries podcast.
Yo.
I'm Matt Colomer. I'm here with my co-host, Raphael Avjolu.
What's up?
And we are graced by the presence of one of my good buddies, Nick Iby. And this dude's amazing. He does a lot of graphic design work. He has his own clothing company, Adfectu Artwork, and he's just straight killing it. So we're going to have a little chat with him today, and we'll let him introduce himself. So, Nick, what's going on?
Not much, just having a blast being with my two pals.
Yeah, cool.
Love it, love it.
But yeah, my name's Nick Iby from Drake, Massachusetts. 23, just turned 23 2 days ago.
Young buck.
Young buck.
Yeah, happy belated.
Thank you. And yeah, I like art.
Cool. What do you do, man?
It started out as me just drawing to get away from... long story short, dated a girl, she dumped me, so I got sad. So I just started to draw to clear my head.
Dude, been there.
And I filled up my whole dorm room full of drawings. And people would come in and be like, oh, like, those are cool drawings. I'm like, yeah. And my roommate at the time was a graphic design major. And he was like, oh, let's build your website. I'll get you a logo. And let's start selling prints of your work. And I was like, all right.
Word.
No one bought posters. No one bought the prints. But someone in the cafeteria was like, hey, I like your prints, but if you drew a flower, put it on a phone case, I'd buy it. And I was like, all right, easy enough. And did that. And then someone's like, oh, I like that flower, put it on a tank top, I'd buy it. And I'm like, okay. And then someone's like, oh, can you draw this and put it on a t-shirt? And I was like, yeah. And it just like slowly started to snowball into... I have t-shirts and hoodies and hats and leggings and bathing suits and the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And then it turned into, hey, can you draw my shoes? Can you draw my skateboard? And then that kind of opened up the doors to doing canvases and murals for businesses and other people. So.
Wow. And how old were you when you first started like drawing and girl dumped you and all that shit?
Sophomore year of college, so I was 20.
Where'd you go to school?
LaSalle College down in Newton.
Cool.
Studied entrepreneurship.
Right on.
And a randomly major, a minor in math, which I don't get why, but...
So you already had this kind of, I want to do things with money attitude, or you didn't know, or what's the...
I knew I wanted... Well, I went to LaSalle for the entrepreneurship program. I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I didn't know what. And so for all this to happen kind of like organically, it just kind of all fell into place. But I had no idea going into it that I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll be an artist as I graduate or anything like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's so crazy. So, sorry, after you.
What has been like the craziest kind of challenge with doing this, with, starting the clothing company, with like you really pursuing it and, doing it like full on? What has been the hardest part for you?
Honestly, just like trying to promote it. Cause as someone, I'm not really like an outgoing type of guy. Like, hey guys, check out my new art. Like,
yeah.
Or check out these new t-shirts I made or whatever. I'm kind of more just like, I let my artwork speak for itself, but that's nice and all, but you also need to have a strong presence as an artist, as a self artist to like, you need people to see what you're doing. Yeah. So trying to like go break my boundaries
of shout out
outside my comfort zone.
Sick.
This is a podcast, guys.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for that, by the way.
That was awesome.
Right. But yeah, to go outside my comfort zone and try to get more eyes on my art. Is probably the hardest thing. Yeah,
I definitely struggle with that as well. I think that I'm fortunate in that even when I started to like make stuff on my phone and there was like no really rhyme or reason or plan or anything like that.
Yep.
Honestly, actually started with dating a girl who was doing that, and I didn't have a smartphone, but she was constantly like taking pictures of the clouds, and then she'd like multiply them so they're like facing each other and like do weird glitchy stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, with no plan or rhyme or reason. So when I got an iPhone, I was like, hey, what are those like phone apps? And like, oh, Instagram. Oh, cool. And I was like, yeah. So I just like immediately started posting like my stuff. Like I'd take out the trash at like this restaurant I worked at, and like, oh, cool, sunset, and I'd take a picture, and then like I'd multiply it or make it glitchy or whatever. But so I was never not able to like post stuff and put stuff out there.
Yep.
But like as time went on, I feel like I saw other people like creating clothes or like, you know, starting a podcast or doing videos on YouTube or doing tutorials and stuff. And I was kind of like, oh, they're all almost like they're already doing it, so I can't do it because they're doing it. Thousands of people are doing it.
Yeah.
Millions of people are doing it. Like, but you have to be like, now I'm doing it, you know, and not be worried about people being like, oh, he's doing a podcast. Okay. Like, what's he doing now? You know, but I struggle in being like, I've put out a few t-shirts with my work on it and stuff like that. And I've been fortunate that people have like gravitated towards them, but it was like really like nerve wracking. I was like, I don't even know if I want like to put this out. Like, oh, cool, he's making t-shirts just like his best friend makes t-shirts. So he's just, what? Like, I don't know. So I definitely struggle in that. I feel like it's not easy, but you have to be like, yo, this is me and this is what I do. Yeah. So what's up?
And then also, now I'm thinking about it, is pricing. Pricing has been another thing where I'm...
it's hard, man.
Yeah, because I'd like... I know, you know, my art is worth a certain amount, but to see... the first start is, you know, most of your business comes from friend and family, so you don't want to be like, oh yeah, this painting is going to be a couple $100. You're like, ooh, like, or a t-shirt's going to be worth $30. It's like, do I really want to spend $30 on a t-shirt? But it's you into the artwork, so they're not really necessarily buying the t-shirt or whatever. They're buying you in a sense.
Like what you bring to it.
Yeah, they're buying more than just like
the fabric,
the fabric or something like that. They're buying your time that you put into making it, and it's also buying, I feel like, a limited edition product that you made because it doesn't really exist other places.
Yep.
Do you screen print?
I use a company in California.
Oh, cool.
So they drop ship. So I essentially just send out my designs.
Nice.
So when someone goes on my website and buys it, I just get an alert like, oh, Matt bought an octopus t-shirt. So I go in, I'm like, boom, octopus t-shirt, boom, send it out, and then they do everything. So
wow,
I do end up losing a bit of profit because they, you know,
of course,
it's a custom one-of-one t-shirt. So
yeah.
But better than that, then, especially when I was at school, I'm not going to have a whole dorm room full of t-shirts in bulk to try and sell.
Fulfilling them yourself would be rough, dude. Like, especially
that's what I did, and it sucked.
I mean, it's like cool. Like you could be like, you know, I do it all myself, but then at a certain point, it's just like, like it's too much stuff. I feel like
what's not cool is being really stressed. So.
I'm
not about that.
That's for sure.
But I can also relate in the pricing factor, and I was just listening to this thing the other day that someone's like, it was a girl talking about being a freelance artist and like what it takes to be a freelance artist, and being like, oh, what do you charge for shoots? What do you charge for this? Everyone charges differently, and everyone thinks, like, I've gotten that question so many times from people. What do you charge? Not asking so they can have a shoot with me, but they're curious because they want to be a photographer and they want to be a freelance, so they're wondering what I charge. Charge differently all the fucking time. If like you work for McDonald's and you want to hire me to take your new double cheeseburger product photos, you think I'm going to charge the same as if you came to me and you wanted headshots?
Yeah.
No, you're a big ass corporation. Like, I'm going to set my rates pretty fucking high.
Yep.
And I'm going to also do a little bit of research about like the food photography industry and see like what the going rates are, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's very different. Even if a restaurant here is doing food photography and they want me to do something small and they're going to promote me in Somerville, that's really cool.
Yep. Compared
to somewhere like Subway is going to be like, whoa, fuck. You know, that should be high ass quality shit. You know, I might even rent a fucking camera or like a specific lens for that.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's just really hard when you just like are starting out with clothes or doing stuff for like the barbershop. Like, what do you charge? You have your man hours. You have your like, you know, the the equipment, I guess. Like, do you use like paint, markers? What's the...
Yeah, for the art that I do in businesses, the murals or canvases. Well, for murals first, the first mural I did was in a school cafeteria where we used, and shout out to Ryan Kelly. He helped me with actually painting. So it was a huge 40 by 8 foot wall, and we used actual just, paint that you'd paint a normal wall with, and use that. But all of my other murals have been, I use these little paint markers. They're big fat Sharpies, but filled with paint.
Don't those like drip a little bit, or you can like hold them against and they'll drip?
You can hold it
because people do that with like graffiti and stuff like that.
Yeah, you can hold it so it drip. But yeah, it won't drip like normally.
Yeah,
But I would use if it was outside, or even if they wanted color, I'd probably use spray paint. There's some good spray paint I found, and what I use for my canvases is I normally use spray paint for the colors, and then I go outline it with the same paint marker. And the paint markers come in different sizes too, so you can get thick lines, small lines, or whatever. So
I have a quick question, but we're gonna take a small break just to fix something. We're back, Breaking Boundaries podcast. Let's continue. Go for it.
All right, so we were just talking about with Nick Iby here, and we were talking about some of the graphic design stuff he does and the artwork that he creates for his clothing brand. And then I wanted to ask him, how has it been transitioning from doing all your own like personal artwork, and then even monetizing that with the clothing, but then now transitioning to doing like commission stuff as well, like. You did artwork at a school cafeteria. You also did artwork you were talking about doing artwork at the chiropractor's office, and then recently the barbershop. Like, how has that been for you? Like, what is the experience of that, and what does it mean to you having those custom artwork that you created in these public spaces? Like, how is that for you?
I simply put, I love it way more than doing clothes. I mean, the one main point is just financially. You make way more on a commissioned piece rather than selling a bunch of t-shirts that are manufactured, from California. So, and especially for me, graduated from college in May, I had to start providing for myself.
Yep.
And so to put my efforts towards art and commission stuff rather than the clothing, that's giving myself more opportunity to, live on my own financially or what have you. But and I was honestly like, I did the numbers, and in February, it'll be 3 years that I've had Adfectu open. And
nice.
Since May, since I graduated, I've done 58% of my revenue over the past 3 years have been in the past 8 months.
Wow.
So that just goes to show my focus has been more on bigger projects and just more time to even just focus on my artwork.
Yeah.
But doing the art, school cafeteria, I've done a dance studio, a barbershop, a chiropractor's office. And then I've drawn a little bit in my own room. But,
nice.
I mean,
commissioned by yourself.
Yeah. It's commissioned by myself.
So
it's super humbling to like even... It's one thing for someone to buy a t-shirt and be like, support you, whatever. They can wear it one day and not. But for someone to hire you to make something permanent on the wall is like super humbling and just like crazy to even.
It's almost like going back to like, there's a whole like psychological study on like the art of play and how like all humans, regardless of what you do, need like a little bit of that like play from like when we were children in order to kind of like keep that happiness or keep that like even just like things that we don't even know subconsciously bring us back to our childhood. But I kind of think about Harold with the Purple Crayon, or like I don't know if you ever read that book. It's like a kid's book, but like just drawing on the walls when you're a little kid. I'm not saying every kid did that, but there was probably some sort of tendency that was like, oh, I'll just draw anywhere, like like I'm gonna build a fort here or whatever like that. And I think it's kind of cool that you're able to do that. Making a living. Do you would you say that you're like kind because you're like, oh, I graduated, so now you like more of your focus is towards doing bigger pieces to be independent. Are you independent? Do you live with your parents, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so it's actually a cool scenario where my parents have a house in Florida, and they both work from home. So half the year they go down to Florida. They migrate basically. Get away from the cold New England weather. So we worked out a deal where I can live at home for free, but I just have to, maintain the house and do all the chores and everything like that. So
wow, and you have the independence because they're not there for that time, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, kind of have like the house to myself, and my brother, he's there for half the time.
Yeah, except when you have to shovel and everything.
Oh yeah, when they're nor'easters.
No one else is gonna, no one else is gonna help.
Dude, well worth it.
No, I just remember Alex talking about that, but it's definitely worth it.
Definitely worth it.
So
I have a couple of friends in that situation.
Yeah.
For the the time, I don't know how long it's gonna go for, but for at least the next year or so, I'm gonna take advantage of that opportunity.
Sure, of course,
definitely. Man.
So
smart.
What do you feel about obviously, I think we all know there's plenty of ways to be unhappy and make a good amount of money if we want to. What do you feel about doing something right now that might not be the most sure thing, or might not be the most promising, or might definitely not be the most financially lucrative, or have you been like sitting with yourself at points and been like, I don't know?
Oh, for sure. Especially now that my parents are out of the house. Yeah. Since it's now like almost winter time, it's pretty much me alone in my own house, which if I don't have anything, I mean, I can stay busy doing art, or if I have jobs, then
we'll keep you company though. Yeah. We can come by whenever. Hey, lonely? Yeah.
I came by recently.
Just have supper ready,
Yeah.
But so there's definitely a lot of times where I'm just kind of like in my own house, like what am I doing? Like,
of course.
You see some friends, like, especially all my friends that just graduated, like, oh yeah, I just got a full-time job, just moved into the city, like, all that. But it's like, I don't know, short term, they might be like feeling all high and mighty. In my short term, I might be like kind of lost in my sense of like, I don't know it, because being your own boss, there's no steps on what to do. You have to make your own to-do list and whatever. So
discipline for sure.
And so it's definitely been a little bit challenging to motivate yourself and think of things to do, and but I've done some side jobs, babysit for people that need it, or actually just in the works.
Let's talk about the side jobs. I've done plenty of those. I know all about it.
Actually, things are in the works, so I can't really talk about it now, but I auditioned for some acting role in some thing. Yeah. And I got called for a trial run. They want to do a trial episode or two and see if they like me. If they do like me, then they'll hire me to a longer term contract. But doing this whole acting thing, they're like, yeah, you'll have like a week or two off. You'll know in advance, so I can still, if I need to travel to Tampa or need to travel to LA to do some art, I can still do that. So I think I might have found a perfect side hustle to go with my art.
And it's interesting kind of just figuring out those things that end up, working for you, and you have to kind of try different things out, do some things here and there, like do some jobs here, maybe not exactly like what you thought you were going to be doing. But I just think we talked about this before, but since we're kind of pursuing that whole life with being our own boss and having that kind of grind with it, like what are your thoughts on like having that? And like of course it takes a ton of discipline, and you have to really know what you're doing and make sure that you're fulfilling those needs that you need to have met. But like how do you feel about like the time freedom like with what you do? Because that for me has been like the biggest thing that I realized with what I do. Like I have like almost like I have an open schedule almost all the time. It gets filled up with some social obligations, some actual jobs and work that I need to get done. But I have, like you said, you can go to Tampa or you can go to somewhere else and you can go like midweek and like get a cheaper flight or be able to travel way cheaper because
or someone's like, yo, we got an extra spot in the van and we're heading up to Maine, like, and
it's a Sunday night.
And we're gonna shoot up there. Like, we're gonna shoot mad photos and like film a reel for this thing. Can you help shoot BTS for it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like how do you feel about that? Because I think for me, like, that has just opened up so many different opportunities. And if I wasn't available for that, then all those things that I want to do with like my career wise wouldn't be possible because the time wouldn't be there.
Yeah, even the thing I talked about in this acting thing.
Yeah.
The prelude to that, Netflix was looking for extras for a TV show they were doing.
Yep.
Just background people, and they needed during the week long hours, so most people can't do that because they have regular jobs or school or anything like that. But to have the open schedule where I can move my schedule around to accommodate whatever comes up. So I was able to do some extra work just for like 4 days, and I just basically just sit and be quiet in the background of the show or whatever. So, but that was like a small foot in the door.
Where did you see that like happening? Did you like see like an ad somewhere? Or what was
so my friend who was a year above me in college, she was my friend. Her roommate that she lives with is a I don't know if it's a correct title, but a fashion PA for the company called Boston Casting, which pretty much gathers all the extras or whoever for the TV show.
Yep.
So she reached out to her roommate, was like, oh, they're looking for extras. You should do it. Carrie did it. And Carrie being my friend and knowing my kind of open schedule was like, oh, you should do it. So then I did it. And then that was like a little foot in the door to like the whole different acting world. And then I got into like their... basically like their system, and they send out emails of we're looking for this, we're looking for that, and this acting thing just came up in an email. It was like, oh, we're looking for people that would be interested in this, and then I just auditioned and got a call back, got a final call back, got a phone interview, which led to a trial episode or two. So
that's dope.
Kind of just like
exciting,
organically,
man.
Yeah, it's.
You never thought about acting before, or?
No. I mean, as a kid, like who wouldn't see a movie like, oh, I would love to do that.
It's so interesting how you just kind of end up doing these things. So like the acting stuff, it's funny that you mentioned that because so I just by hanging out with photographers, like I started like posing for photographers, right? And just it was fun. Like I learned how to be behind the camera by being in front of the camera, which is pretty interesting.
Yep.
And then I actually recently sent my stuff to an agency in New Hampshire, and they do like modeling and acting stuff.
Yep.
I was actually more like thinking about like as like for photos, like posing in photos.
Yep.
But then I went and they like were interested, and then I auditioned, and they were like kind of asking me about my acting like experience, which is not very much. So then they were kind of telling me how it works, and like they were recommending me to do acting because even to do like to pose in photos and stuff, you kind of need to have at least this agency. Yeah. They're like, you need to have the acting experience first because those people that are getting those like print jobs are like they're acting first. Yeah. And this company, this agency, they do a lot of commercial work. So it's like commercials, like all in the like different kind of brands, like Mazda and like I don't know, like Tic Tac, like different things like that. They were telling me some of the ones that they do, or like Marshalls, TJ Maxx, stuff like that. So like they kind of like told me about that, and I had like a second meeting with them, but it was like kind of a similar thing. And they want me to come back in a few months, but they want me to have acting experience. They said if I have some acting training of some kind, which I could actually do on my own, then I would be able to, get in with them and like be with the booking agents or whatever and go that route. But so I don't know. It's pretty interesting, like getting into that scene and like doing stuff that you didn't expect.
Oh, for sure.
You to be doing, you know? All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hey, guys, thank you for listening to episode 8 of the Breaking Boundaries podcast with designer Nick Iby. Nick is one of my good friends, such a good guy, and his stuff is amazing, such a creative person. Go check out his website, adfectu.com, adfectu.com. All of his artwork is on there. His story, a video that I actually created last year about how he got into art and why he does it, his motivation, and how he gets inspired. And you can also purchase some of the clothing on there. I encourage you to do so. His stuff is amazing, and he designs all of the things himself. He draws them and then gets them put onto all different types of clothing. So go check out his website, adfectu.com, and follow him on Instagram as well. We'll provide links to all of his social media in the podcast information and also with the video on YouTube. So thank you guys for listening to episode 8 with Nick Iby. All right, guys, we are back. So we were just talking about, Nick is getting into a little bit of the acting stuff, and I guess we can talk about how, when you're in this creative space or you're in this field, this, whether you want to call it freelance or entrepreneurial or, whatever you want to call it, a lot of us have this time freedom where we can have the time to pursue our craft and then also pursue some other things along with that. And I just think that's something to really, that's really important and beneficial if this is something that you do want to do. Because it really opens up a lot of opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be available, that would otherwise not be available. So
can I interrupt and say that I feel like I want to do a lot of different things, music, acting, dancing, photo, video, all these different things, but I almost feel like I don't have the time necessarily, but I need the time to do other things because I need to make money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's a difference for sure between being like, oh, like I have all this free time as a freelance photographer, I'm gonna like dive into acting, or being like, this gig's really good, so even though it's gonna take away from a little bit from the time that I could be spending on photo, it's another creative thing, and I'm down to try it, and I'm down to like make a paycheck, essentially. So I think,
for sure.
But outside of that, I mean, I've done like floor installation, roof tiling, fucking like just mad construction, like day kitchen jobs, event catering, bartending, like all types of, like, when I look at gigs on Craigslist and stuff like that, I look at all gigs because I don't know what might pop up and what might be paying $50 an hour, and what I might not be doing on a Saturday or whatever. I can just like do that,
Yeah.
And I think that's important to understand, because I've met a lot of like 50-year-old pretty well-off photographers who are like, oh, dude, when I was in my 20s, I like literally like shoveling and like raking and like door-to-door stuff like all the time, like selling knives and stuff like that, So it's like
just hustling,
just hustling. You're just like, but like you also can't pick up those gigs if you have a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
You also can't pick up those gigs, and your 9-to-5 might be paying $11 an hour, and this one day construction gig might be paying $40 an hour. So it's like,
right. And it's like, and that's, I mean, I had some part-time jobs right after college. Some of which were like pretty good, and then I ended up doing, like I've talked to you guys about before, like teaching in Korea. That was like the first full-time job I had, which was like an amazing experience. But then I also, like, I remember, like, while I was in school, I had some part-time jobs, which I think are actually pretty valuable to have. So like if you're like a little younger in high school and stuff, it is good to have those things. Yeah, you don't make that much money, but you're learning different skills. Like for a time I worked at Target as like a salesperson. And I was like, I had like a kind of mentality about it where I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it was kind of like a bad mentality to be in. I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm better than this. But I actually did learn from it, and it made me realize that to me, my time is worth more than a minimum wage. Because it was before that I worked at a grocery store, and that was when I was really young, and I think it was a great experience to be involved in this. the store they were very flexible, so it was a good thing. And then this other job that I had during college for a very brief time at Target, I was like, I didn't appreciate it at all, but like I said, it made me realize, okay, I think my time is worth more than whatever it was, $11 an hour at the time. And then, because when you're doing something that you really want to do, you might not be getting paid for that hour, but you are getting better, and then you can end up charging way more. Mm-hmm. You can now charge $100 an hour, $150 an hour if you really want, because you built up the skills. Mm-hmm. And if you spent that time working at that, if you don't, unless you really, really have to, you spent that time working at that job, and then all your time was taken away from actually learning a specialized skill that actually you could charge more for. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting thing to talk about.
What do you feel like growing up, did you grow up in a creative household? Did you do a lot of things or jobs growing up that made you feel like, oh, I'm going to do this or do that, or this is the career path I want to go into? Were you completely lost when you went to school, or what was,
I've always been kind of creative. Actually, in my, as a kid, always playing with Legos, just super creative. And actually, my brother, Alex Iby, he's been on the show. He's kind of the whole role model, but he's an amazing artist. Whether it's real life portraits he can draw or abstract art, he's just super talented dude. And when he was in college, when I was still in high school, he started doing network marketing for this company, which kind of opened, and then he got me involved with it, and that kind of opened the whole personal development and, that whole side of everything, which kind of got me intrigued to wow, you can actually control your life, and you have some say in, what happens to you.
Right.
And so that kind of got me on the entrepreneurship
track. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I went to school looking for an entrepreneurship program, because I had Alex kind of open me up to the whole personal development world and entrepreneurship and working for yourself and all that jazz.
That is really cool. I think that must have been a cool experience to have your brother, kind of helping you with that, or at least inspiring you in some ways to really go down that.
And I got shit on for doing the network marketing because it's such an uncommon thing. So kids at school would be oh, just talking crap.
Yeah.
Which also ended up helping me because, you learn more about yourself and how you can deal with other people and everything like that. So,
sure.
I wouldn't change anything about it.
Yeah. How did it feel at the time, and how does it feel now coming from because I've still had plenty of people still who probably talk, and that people that I know that talk that are yeah, right. Doing what,
Well, it's just the example. If you put one crab into a bucket, it'll get out.
Yeah.
But if you put multiple crabs in a bucket, if one crab starts to get out, the other crabs will pull it down. So it's just there's
That's
crabs.
an interesting analogy.
Yeah. And it's a real life thing. You put some crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, go see what happens.
Yeah.
If one tries to get out, the rest of them just pull it down.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But that's
that is wild, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely you said, seeing who is worth being around, because we were talking about this before. You are the 5 people that you surround yourself with. 100%. And I think that when you surround yourself around, I realize now looking back that I loved my roommates so much. I still talk to them now that I lived with in college. Pre-med, engineer, and supply chain management. But and I mean, when some people are always poking fun at videography, but they're just poking fun at the jokes and the memes that come out and stuff like that, or if I'm shooting photography of a bunch of naked models, there's gonna be a lot of talking shit in the house, but then when you get really offended, they're bro, I'm just talking shit, and or yo, lighten up or whatever, and you're kind of yeah, I'll lighten up. And then you're oh yeah, and then you learn to take shit, and you kind of don't care. But then over time, you're well, they weren't necessarily pushing me either, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they were just, yeah.
I mean, even if it was all in good fun, they were like just, you know, like their overall attitude probably was affecting me in a weird way, not to continue, not to push myself as far as maybe I should have been the last 2 years, even though I feel like I pushed pretty hard. I feel like maybe I would have tried this route or tried that route, but all the time in the back of my head when I was typing a caption on Instagram or when I was thinking about a photo, like subconsciously I was thinking, what did my roommates think? You know, like, because you start to surround yourself around those people, then you're like, if I shoot that, then they'll think I'm fucking like lame, and like, they'll think that caption's really sappy, and you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, wait, no, fuck them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think you have to really like decide, like, and be very, I think, strict with yourself about who you're gonna like spend your time with, because
It can be toxic.
yeah, there can be people that are clearly bad to spend time with that are going to bring you down. But then there's like and then there are people that like, wow, like this person is amazing.
Yeah.
I need to learn from them. I need to be with them, like hang out with them. But then there's a whole spectrum in the middle of that where there's like people that are like, they're not bad people, and I don't think most people, 99% of people are not bad people, but they're not like, there are people in
like
that
neutral.
middle. Yeah, they're neutral, or they're in the middle spectrum where they don't really like, they're not really secure fully with what they're doing, which is okay.
Yeah.
Or who they are.
Yeah.
So then they can't really push you to grow.
Oh yeah.
And they're like more, you know, they're not going to put down per se what you're doing, but they might like joke about it, and they might not really like have any really thing to contribute
Right.
to what you're doing.
They're not adding.
They're not adding, and maybe they're not subtracting, but they're just not. They're like you said, they're more neutral.
It's hard for me to like surround myself these days with like even people that like I might be shooting for them or something like that. It might even be like a paid client, or like I'm doing like album work or something. I do like a lot of album covers.
Yep.
And like, you know, I'm happy to do it. They're paying me to do it. So like ideally I hope their music's good, and I've been fortunate to work for some like really talented musicians. But I've also like, then I meet up with them and I'm like, and they're like, oh no, I just like don't really do social media, and or they're just talking and they're like, oh well I want to eventually do this, but you know, it's just hard. And you can tell because you remember either certain friends that were like that, you remember maybe even yourself was like that a little bit, and now you've seen the progression, the growth since then, but you also are just like, oh, they're not approaching this game realistic at all, or they have no idea.
Concept.
And I'm sorry, but I just can't like hit you up on a regular basis or see what you're up to, or develop this beautiful relationship with you, because I don't want to be like the crap in the buckets. You know, like I don't want to be dragged down by your unrealistic approach at what it means or what it takes to be an artist making a living. You know, because
I think you can a lot of times you can. I think we're pretty good at reading people, whether we realize it or not.
Oh yeah.
And you can develop the skill over time, but you can read people and like see if they're like if they're fully like there or not.
Yeah.
And I can just like sometimes I'm with people and they're just like, they're just not there. You know what I mean?
Or they're like excuse makers.
Yeah,
Or
and
like
it's
a
just
big
like,
thing. That's kind of what I want.
that's a red flag.
Yeah, I can't do excuse makers. I can't do people who say I can't do things. You know, like it's really hard for me to be around people who are like, oh, I would, but I can't. You know, like, if your grandma's really sick in the hospital and you have to work at McDonald's because you have to pay her medical bills because no one else will, and you have to watch over her, that's a very specific situation, but that happens.
Yeah.
You know, and you also own money for student loans on top of that, and your parents aren't around. There's very different ways to like put you into that hole. And I'll still say, oh, I've known people like that are still like killing it in like other ways outside of that and pushing past that, but not everyone has the mental capacity to do that. But like, if I know you and I know you're chilling on a cloud, and you're just like, oh, I wish, but I can't, then it's just really hard for me to hang around those people. And you can't blame me for like not like hitting you up constantly or not whatever. It's just like,
or that like people they like avoid failure and challenges at all costs.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, like,
I would, but I might fail at that, or I might not make it in that, or like it just might not work. I'm like, yeah, it might not work.
Clearly, like your attitude's awful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how would it ever work?
Yeah.
You know, so that's definitely something that I think as you get into your, you know, early to mid and later in your 20s, like I think that's like the big thing that we have to like, you know, do and really pay attention to with like who we hang out with, for sure.
You strike me as someone that's like open to suggestion, like fairly open to suggestion.
Yeah.
That's like a big plus. I was a stubborn artist for sure for a long time that was like, yo, this is my way, and I want to do it this way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be told what to do in general in life, but I certainly don't want to be told how to make my art or what would look better.
Yeah.
I think I have a pretty good understanding of what looks good, okay? You know, that was kind of my attitude, you know, but like, I think it really helps to be like, or even just being like, yo, how'd you make that video? You know, and not being like, I don't want to ask, I'll figure it out. You know, no, I want to be able to be like, yo, how did you do that? Like, you were talking about like, how I work with models yesterday, and that was like, oh dude, I'm happy to tell you everything.
Yep.
You know, so I think that's like really important. Like, have you always been that way, or? Yeah,
and even if, just wanted to say real quick, even if you don't have people in your town, city, what have you, there's YouTube, there's podcasts to surround yourself. Like with audio, surround yourself with people who inspire you. So you don't necessarily need to go out to the bars or go wherever the normal crowd hangs out. You can stay at home and surround yourself with
content.
Yeah, with content.
For sure. Like I think like
there's a how-to on
there
everything.
is okay. So I feel like there's so much information available to us, and it can definitely be overwhelming. And I feel for people thinking about that because it is overwhelming. But I think our task right now in today's day and age, especially for younger people, to figure out their life and all this shit. And it's not really figuring out your life that you're gonna have it all figured out. That's the thing. You're not. But you just have to keep, you know, trying to become better. Yeah. And our task right now is to figure out and filter out what information is the stuff that we should be paying attention to. Just like we're saying, you should surround yourself with the right people. And just like you're saying, there's all this great stuff available. And when people are like, oh, everything's bad, there's no good music, there's no good content.
Dude, I'm like, yo,
it's like, yes, there is. Like, you're not like filtering it out right. Yeah. And like, I think we have a big advantage in some ways right now because
for sure
there's like these amazing books and podcasts where people are saying how they failed, why they failed, and how you can learn from it. And
like, you used to only be able to, you had to read a book in order to learn something. You know?
Go to the library.
Yeah.
Check out a
book and learn it. Now there's you never have to read if you don't want to. It's so crazy
listening
if you really don't want to.
Listening to podcasts, for example, has like blown my mind because I feel like I'm expediting my learning process by
You're
listening. I'm driving when people think about that as like dead time. Yeah. Right. I'm driving, but I'm like, you know what? I could listen to music. That's enjoyable and could be beneficial. Yeah. But you know what? Maybe it's time to listen to a podcast about some guy that's like very successful in what he does, and he has a grasp of like what life is and what it's all about. Yeah. And then I can listen to him have a conversation with another guy who's also like doing that, who's also super smart. Yeah. Like, and then I can just learn from that while I'm just chilling driving. Yeah. Like, that's fucking amazing,
You're
man.
listening to philosophy.
Of
life.
Exactly. So it's like, that's an advantage. Oh, yeah. You're now these people that aren't even around you in person are like around you.
Around you, yeah.
And like, it's like, wow, that's amazing.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So we got a couple more minutes left on the podcast. Yeah. Couple things anything else that you guys want to say?
Well, Ryan beat me to it. Ryan and I were talking. I wanted to give you guys a little gift for having me on.
Stickers?
A little sticker bundle for you. And a sticker bundle
Thanks,
for you.
Man.
Yo.
This is sick.
I like this. Yo, this is tight.
Yeah, some of my
these are really
popular
sick,
designs.
Ooh.
Oh my God, dude, these are dope.
Tight.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Fuck yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Man, it was really awesome having you drop in and just talk with us.
Same. Yeah.
I love just hanging out with people like we're talking about, just doing their thing and just really going after it. So yeah, man, it's exciting for me. I'm stoked about it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I hope to we're all around this area, which is great
for sure.
Yeah, anything that you where do you want people to check you out? Like
social media?
Yeah, social media. Instagram is probably the heavy app I use. My username is Adfectu Artwork, so ADFECTU _.
And tell folks real quick
artwork.
before we sign off what Adfectu
Yeah, so
means.
Adfectu, translated from Latin, means real feelings, which when I was going through the hard time in my life, all my feelings were poured out onto my paper, which kind of snowballed. And then it kind of sounded cool too, so.
Hell yeah, it's a bonus.
Yeah, and then also adfectu.com, adfectu.com is a website.
Oh yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. And
right on.
Hopefully we'll have you on for another podcast episode at some point.
Hey,
and
I'd love to.
Appreciate you stopping by, and everyone that's listening. Appreciate it. Hope you learned something. And we'll catch you in the next one.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Boundaries podcast. We appreciate every listener out there, and we hope that we can continue to provide value and inspiration as you move forward in your lives. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, rate and review, as that helps us out as we strive to make the podcast bigger and reach more people across more platforms. If there's anything we can do to improve the podcast, or if there's any suggestions, please don't hesitate to let us know. We're here for you. Thank you for listening, and continue to break your boundaries.